Yes, sir. You just found it. In course with you. Let's chat.
Welcome to the Intercourse Show. I'm your host, Mr. B. In today's reactionary video, we are discussing the Hamas-Israel war. There is a man on Piers' show today. I believe his name is Cenk Uyger. He's a Democratic presidential hopeful who really speaks out against, I guess, the atrocities of the bombings and the effects that it's having on the Palestinian people to Piers. And it's a very passionate plea that he's making both to the Israeli people and to the leadership over with Israel about this particular matter. And I think he is onto something. There are a lot of people who have been devastated by the brutal bombings of some of these folks. And we can't quite see whether or not the reactions are proportional or if there's an overstep. I think there's definitely an overstep. I think there's a lot of innocent people dying as a result of this conflict. I do condemn what Hamas did in terms of, going in and attacking innocent people who were just at a festival. I think they should be treated as a terrorist organization. I think there should be special forces that enters to deal with those individuals who carry out the attack. But I don't believe it's justifiable to just bomb them at will. This is what gets discussed in this particular segment. We'll go ahead and jump into this. And we just thank you guys for joining. For those of you who have yet to subscribe to our page, we encourage you to like and subscribe and share this message and to join the conversation with us. So let's go ahead and get started.
Well, joining me now to discuss this is the founder of the world's most influential progressive online channel, the Young Turks, a Democratic presidential hopeful. And that's Cenk Uyger. Cenk, great to have you on the program. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. I've been following your tweets with interest this week. You've been getting increasingly angry, I think it'd be fair to say. You said, I'm now enormously frustrated by US and Israeli government's barbaric acts in Gaza. I will not be shy in sharing that opinion on Piers Morgan's show today. Why are you so frustrated?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I didn't expect the framing that you put on this segment, and it's framing like that. That's disgusting. So I don't see what this has anything to do with anti-Semitism. I formed Young Turks and TYT with two Jewish friends who are some of my friends growing up. We've known each other and been brothers for over 40 years now. So I think what Hamas did is disgusting. I cry for those Israeli innocent civilians. But do I see you guys crying for Palestinians? I mean, Chris Christie was just on here treating it like it's no big deal because what, Palestinian lives don't matter? I think the real bigotry here is saying that Palestinians, we can kill 3 times as many of them already. And this is the appetizer. Netanyahu and his barbaric government have not even started the entree of murder and death and mayhem they're about to do. And that's somehow okay, killing 3 times as many Palestinian civilians, let alone the occupation, which is bigotry by definition. We say that everyone in the world can defend themselves, can have their own state, can have sovereignty, except the Palestinians. And the reasoning behind that is the Palestinians are what? They're what? The idea is that they are savages and that Muslims are too violent and cannot control themselves. So they must be occupied for 56 brutal, disgusting years. So I've had enough of the bigotry against Muslims and Palestinians, and I need you to speak out against that instead of covering every outrageous, atrocious action of the right-wing government of Israel and going, oh, it's anti-Semitism. No, and there is global anti-Semitism. There's anti-Semitism here in this country. 2 synagogues were shot up, Pittsburgh and in Southern California. We fight against that all the time. But then whenever Israel is criticized, people go, oh, no, it's anti-Semitism. No, there's real anti-Semitism. Instead of attacking that, all you guys ever do is hide behind the veil of anti-Semitism. Do you know why Palestinians might not like Israelis? Because they've been oppressed for 56 straight years.
I hear you. And let me respond. I'm not you guys. I don't think I fit into any neat fit on this issue at all. B, I've actually covered this story, I think, more fairly than most people. I've had many pro-Palestinian voices I've given a huge platform for. They've been getting enormous audiences, from Bassem Youssef to others, and I've done that quite deliberately because I think these voices are important to be heard, including yours. I certainly wasn't accusing you, by the way, or your organization of anti-Semitism. I just think I have found it, as somebody who's always identified as liberal myself, I've found it very dispiriting to see people who call themselves liberals whose instant response, it seemed to me, to one of the worst terror attacks we've ever seen was to immediately side with the place where these attacks have been launched from. Now, I don't tar all Palestinians with the brush of being Hamas at all. And in fact, the sooner Hamas are out of there, the better for the Palestinian people and the world. But I just think the only human response you can have is, as you did, by the way, to your credit, is it was disgusting what happened on October the 7th. Now, the question then becomes, what is a proportionate response by Israel? Not just to the terror attacks of October the 7th, but obviously there is now a huge ongoing escalation in what has been, as you rightly say, a 56-year war, effectively, in varying degrees over that period. And that's where I think I'm struggling to see how a ground invasion by Israel, with all that that would entail, particularly mass deaths of Palestinian civilians, how that is going to do anything for any peaceful resolution to this. I think it will have the opposite effect.
Yes. So let's take it one at a time. First of all, as you rightly point out, on Young Turks, we covered the atrocious actions of Hamas right from the get-go, and we condemned it as fully as anyone can possibly condemn it. Because not only are they killing those poor, innocent Israelis that didn't do anything, those little babies and the grandmothers, it's disgusting what they did. But on top of that, they're ruining the Palestinian cause. They've burned the moral high ground to cinders. And then on top of that, they smear all people of Muslim background like myself. And then it unleashes this bigotry of anti-Muslim bigotry throughout the world that I'm sick of. So screw Hamas and their barbarism, okay? Now, in terms of a proper reaction.
We're going to pause right here. I'd like to weigh in. There's a question that comes up from the first segment of what was discussed. It seems as if the gentleman is outraged by the fact that any criticism that is made of the Israeli government is viewed as being anti-Semitic. So then that leads us into the question, our first question today. You know, is it fair to say that any decisions made by the Israeli government is anti-Semitic? I don't believe it is. I think every government should be criticizing decisions that they make, whether it's good criticism or bad criticism. I think as a free society, we have a right as the people living in that society to question, well, you made this government to go into the Iraq war, right? Was that a good decision? What was the outcomes of it? You know, how many lives was lost, right? I think we have a right as educated people to say, I don't know that that was a right decision, and to weigh the pros and cons of the decision. And I think there are some people who make valid arguments on this particular topic about the reaction that the Israeli government took to address the heinous acts of Hamas to their people. I definitely think they needed to react, to avenge their people, to rescue hostages, to do what they needed to do. But at the same time, I think we should be able to say, well, is the reaction proportionate to the act, right? You know, if someone slaps you in your face, is it proportionate to break their arms, their legs, their ankles, bash their head in, you know, cut them? Like, is all that proportionate to what happened to you? Or does a slap merit a slap? Or does a slap merit a punch? At what point do you sort of disassociate the magnitude of the reaction from the original action that was taken? So I just think at this point, you know, he makes a valid point by saying it's not fair to say that it's anti-Semitic for him to simply question the actions of the Israeli government in response to the heinous act that Hamas took against his people. I think there's a lot of innocent people dying, and I think that is why this man feels passionate about this cause. I don't think anybody wants to see babies blown up, insinuated, grandmothers blown up, insinuated, and to see images of that going through your cell phone feed, through social media. We're seeing that on television is just horrific. As a man with young kids, you know, it's hard to explain that to your children, why any human being should suffer like that. And I think we have a voice for a reason to speak up, especially when we see injustices happening. And I think it was an injustice for Hamas to attack Israel. But I also do think Israel is partly being causing injustices to the innocent people of Palestine by the way that they've reacted to this matter. And I think the world is starting to be outraged by just the death that's happening. So I think he's not passionate about it without cause. I think it's a fair point that he's making. The thing I would actually have to observe is Piers, to his credit, has allowed some people to come in and to, you know, bring forth the Palestinian side, to bring forth their perspective. But I don't know that Piers is always giving them the platform in a fair manner that he gives it to the other side. I think he is biased. I think he feels that Israel is justified for taking the actions that they're taking. You could tell by some of the questions that he asked. He said, well, if they don't take these measures, how else are they going to solve the Hamas problem? But to be honest, this is not the first time Israel has bombed these people, and the Hamas problem never went away. So they're doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And that's the very definition of insanity, right? So I think in a way it's fair to say, well, if this particular approach of just blankly bombing these folks has not solved the problem of eradicating Hamas, why is doing it this time going to, right? So that we can be a bit more tactful. I think they were so close to a peace deal with Saudi Arabia and really normalizing relations with other countries in the Middle East. And to have this matter disintegrate, the possibilities of that happening is, you know, it's really sad. I think their reaction could have been moderate to the situation, to really kind of send a message to not attack them, but at the same time still keeping the door open for peace talks with Saudi Arabia, who's a major player in that area, to solve the problems. And it's unfortunate that things went so far left. We'll just continue with the interview.
Yes, you need to get those hostages out. So now let's look at I'm going to suggest what to actually do. I'm going to be constructive. But first, let's look at the unconstructive solution that Israel had. Dropping bombs on residential buildings. 50 ambulances have been hit. 10 out of 25 hospitals don't operate anymore. The incubators are about to run out of energy. There's 45 babies that might die today. The parents, I just read on CNN, are writing the names of the kids on their calves, on their legs, so that if they are killed in a bombing and they're mutilated, they can find their bodies. Imagine writing the name of your child on their legs so that you could find them in the rubble after Israel or any government drops a bomb on them. And I need the West to understand something. Bombs kill people. And do you know how they kill people? They incinerate them alive, or their heads explode. So what happened in Israel was a disaster and disgusting. But you have to be equally honest and equally outraged at the immorality of incinerating babies and grandmothers and aunts and uncles, which is what we're doing right now. America cannot keep sending aid for death and destruction. Enough of the occupation. End it today. End it today. It's monstrous. Okay, I'm
going to have to pause here again because I want to go ahead and make another comment to the point that he just raised. I think this is another valid point that this man is making. If you are a human being living in this world with any sort of compassion for the human race, I don't think you could sit with yourself comfortably observing what's being shown on television with this war. it has troubled me watching it. And I'm no expert on this matter. And so I'm not saying that, you know, I have all the answers. But I don't believe the answer to this conflict is bombing and killing innocent children and innocent people on both sides. I believe cooler heads can prevail, and I believe there are other measures that can be taken to create some sort of peace situation for both sides of this conflict. But to be bombing them excessively for 13 straight days and to just continue to essentially massacre these people, not allow aid to go in to the country, and the people are dying from starvation, food, and infections of their wounds, and just it sends the wrong message. And I don't know that these people are being mindful of the perception that the world is getting in terms of how these people are being treated. And again, I don't condone the actions of Hamas, a terrorist organization who took it upon themselves to, attack another country. I'm simply saying you're not making the case for why people should rally behind you when you continue to bomb innocent people and kill children and, essentially insinuate babies and elderly people. It's not a good look. So when this man is speaking, I think he's speaking on the side of humanity. Any human being, regardless of whether you're Israeli, Palestinian, or you have some different sort of ethnic, background, I think it's immoral whether it's happening to these folks or to other folks, blacks, whites, anybody, Asian. It's just inhumane to just do that. War is not a beautiful thing. It's not pleasant. And I think it really shows the sad side of humanity, right? The ability to just kill at will with no regard for human feelings about the matter is tough. The Bible says this one thing. It says, do unto others as you would like done unto yourself. Treat others as you would like to be treated, right? No one wants to be bombed. No one wants to be, tortured, starved, right? So while I understand Israel did have to react to the heinous acts that was done to them, I do think it's gotten to a point where their reaction has become excessive, and it's really kind of prompting the world not to sympathize with Israel anymore. It's prompting the world at this point to see Israel as the bully, because they continue to, kill innocent people who was not involved in the attacks of Hamas towards the Israeli people. So it's hard for the world to justify how a child, a babies, who are far removed from the situation, could now have to face the ramifications of the actions of people who took it upon themselves to do a heinous act. And it's when that's being shown through the media feed, it's just creating more and more bad press, and it's just not a good look.
Cenk, let me ask you this. I completely understand your passion and your anger. I completely get this. I, like you, want to see some resolution at the end of this horror that we're witnessing. How do you get rid of Hamas if you don't do it the way Israel are currently doing it? How do you actually eradicate what has become a nihilistic ISIS-style terror group who've quite deliberately, in my estimation, committed an outrage of such appalling scale that they knew that this would goad Israel into this kind of response? So why they did that, what is motivating it, who might be putting them up to it, who's helped them prepare for this, these are all questions we don't know the answers to yet. But it seems to me that Israel could, if it's not careful, be being lured into a massive trap here. And I hope that is not the case. But I'm curious, how do you get rid of Hamas if you don't do it the way Israel is currently doing it, albeit with horrific collateral damage in the face of thousands of innocent Palestinians being caught up in the bombing?
Yeah. So let me give you a short-term answer, long-term answer. And a lot of people are not going to like these, but these are realistic ways that you minimize civilian casualties. You do what America did with the Osama bin Laden raid. We didn't go drop a nuke on Pakistan. We didn't go destroy 6,000 residential buildings in the middle of Pakistan. We sent in special forces. Is it more dangerous to the special forces? Of course. That's the point of special forces. Try to find the hostages. Does it look like Israel's trying to find the hostages? If I have a family member that's a hostage, I'm disgusted by what Netanyahu's doing now. How do you know they're not in the buildings you're dropping bombs on? How do you know they're not in the tunnels you're dropping bombs on? How do you know they're not in the hospitals you're dropping bombs on? So this, if you want the hostages rescued, every rational human being can agree this is not the way to do it. This is the way to do death and destruction for the sake of death and destruction. It's collective punishment. It's genocide against Palestinians, and the world has to speak out. So my way is not pleasant either. It involves a lot of folks dying on both sides. I understand that. Those are super hard choices. But go find Hamas. Go find the hostages. Go rescue them instead of wantonly, indiscriminately killing after killing. And let's be honest, when you drop a bomb and a kid's head explodes and a grandmother is incinerated, that is terrorism. Killing 3 times as many civilians as Hamas is terrorism. And it is the same if it is done by a government. Send in as many special forces as you got. We should send in whatever you got to actually do the job at hand instead of what Netanyahu is doing, which is to kill these people to what? Send a message. And think about how unrealistic that is. And think about why his method has a 0% chance of working. How are the Palestinians supposed to rise up against Hamas? How would they prove they're against Hamas? Hamas ended all elections. Hamas ended democracy. So how are the Palestinians supposed to cry uncle? They're already crying uncle, but it's never enough for the bloodthirsty Netanyahu. No, more death of Palestinians, more babies killed. That's what his answer is. And it's this, and the United States of America, I'm running for president here. There's no way in the world I would allow this, sending $105 billion. And it doesn't even go to Israel, Ukraine, or Taiwan. It goes to the defense contractors that bribe these greedy American politicians and then get most of that money. And so the long-term answer is 1967 borders and the biggest walls you've ever seen in your entire life. And no one's allowed to cross to either side. But the Palestinians get their state. It is unconscionable for them not to get their state. And if you're a moral person, of course you believe that the Palestinians are not the only people in the world that cannot govern themselves. If you say that, you are being, by definition, bigoted and a racist. We have to have two-state solution immediately. If 56 years of occupation and brutalizing these people is not enough, is 57 years going to be enough? Is 156 years going to be enough? I'm asking Israel, not out of hate, out of love. So many of my friends that I grew up with are Jewish. This is not good for them. This is not good for anybody. Please look into your hearts, look and be the moral people that I know you can be. I've been to Passover dinners where you pray for your oppressors. Now, it breaks my heart, but I got to tell you, you got to pray for those you are oppressing. And to say that you are not oppressing the Palestinians after brutalizing them for 56 long years, you're kidding yourself. And as a friend and an ally, I'm trying to get you to wake up and snap out of this trance. You cannot keep doing this. It is ruining your moral fiber.
Cenk, Uyger, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. I'm sorry it was your first appearance on this program under these circumstances, but I hope it won't be your last. I think you're an important voice in this, and I do appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you.
I think the man made a very valid point and a plea to ask, maybe Israel to reconsider the approach that they're taking and to relent and to allow aid to go into that area so that those people can be served. There are innocent people in this conflict on the other side who doesn't, wish death upon Israel, who are just trying to live their lives, who are just trying to raise their family, just trying to raise their children. He asked them to allow their good nature to come, to allow forgiveness to come, to just stop the bombings and the fighting, and to come to the table to find a reasonable resolution to this. I don't believe brutality and the constant bombing solves the problem. I think if anything, it worsens it. So this my take on this particular situation. I think we could always pray, which is what I'll go ahead and do. Father God, I pray that you go ahead and inject yourself into this situation, that you help these people find a resolution that is peaceful, that is that allows them to live amongst each other amicably, and that stops the killing on both sides. In Jesus' name I pray. Thank you for my viewers. For those of you who have not been subscribed to this show, we ask that you join us, and we ask that you continue to let your voice be heard so that we can make an impact that benefits others. All right, guys, be well.
Get down. 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 I'm from the South, where it get hotter than Hades. Not a Mercedes, just a Chevrolet.